Sorry guys. I had it on mute. Is it working now? Sorry everyone. It's just a little mute button. While I prep, it's just one of those things. Are we good? Can everyone hear me? So that last 5 minutes was for nothing. I know, it's hilarious. It's just one of those things. I was explaining something to no one. I was explaining it to myself. Okay, it looks like you can all hear me again. I was just addressing a question from last time about where to start. Just go to our YouTube channel and start there. I mean, there's a lot of Try Django series. That's where you start with Django. Try Angular. That's where you start with Angular, and so on. So if you have more questions about that, please let me know. Thank you, everybody. So couple things. I did want to say that thanks for showing up on time and early for a lot of you. It was muted. I apologize for that. Silly little mistakes. They happen sometimes. Because the way I do live streaming is a lot different than the way I actually make my videos. So I'm still getting used to it, and I haven't done it in a few days, so boom, there was the error. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you for being patient with me for those couple of minutes. Okay, so now, yes, for nothing, say it once again. Thanks again for everyone showing up. So the live streams are here to answer your questions, right? That's what I want to do, is answer your questions. And I recently got this suggestion of actually doing a topic at a live stream and then answering questions after that. So let me know in the live chat. Give me a thumbs up if you like this idea, right? So either on the video, thumbs up if there's a way to do that. There probably is. If you want to see me do a topic first and then answer questions about that topic after, or just general questions and after that too. But I do like this idea potentially of just explaining a topic or going over some sort of lesson and then having these live Q&A sessions right after. The reason I haven't done it so far is because in my experience, doing live training is not nearly as effective as doing the recorded training and then answering your questions as they come. Because we all learn at different paces, and then also I speak at, whatever pace I speak at. And that sometimes is a little bit challenging, right? So that's sort of something that I'm really interested to hear from you guys, if that's something you want to do. The next thing is this a good time? Do you like this time for streaming? It's 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's pretty good for me. I think it would be probably good for you guys, but I need to know. Let me know in the comments. Or give me a thumbs up on the video. Whatever you want to do. Anyways, okay, so now I'll jump in to the chat. So if you do want to see me do that topic, say, yes, I want to see that topic. It looks like some of you said, yeah, but I think that might be because of my audio. So anyways, let's see. I'm going to start at Learn Tech Bro. Thank you for the comment of liking my tutorials. I do appreciate it. Mert says, hey, Justin, can you suggest an authentication system? I have an API system which has you wrote in Django and you want auth from mobile. Sorry for your English. No worries. Your English is pretty good, Mert. Thanks for the question. So basically, if you're going to be building an API, you're going to want to probably use the Django REST framework. That's the most effective and quickest way to build an API with Django. And they have a lot of authentication packages in there that you can use. So it really depends on what it is that you're trying to do with your mobile app, right? So like if you want third-party apps to be able to use your API, then you're going to want to use something like OAuth 2, OAuth or OAuth 2. Both of those are really useful for third-party applications using your backend, right? So like Facebook does that. When you log in with Facebook, you actually then get redirected to Facebook's website. You authenticate and then you come back. That's OAuth. Actually, I think they use OAuth 2. And so you could do it that way. Now, if it's just your mobile application, which it sounds like it might be, you can use the Django REST Framework JOT, or JWT. It's pronounced JOT. You can use that for your authentication. And that's just that's basically just an authentication header with a token that you send on the requests that aren't safe. So on a put request, on a post request, on a delete request, you typically put that header in with there. The other side is if you needed to, password protect anything and you wanted to grab what those sort of password or authentication required items are, you would add that token in too. So I think I'm pretty sure I cover that in my most recent REST API tutorial. It's like a little over an hour long, and it's just rapid fire. I'm pretty sure that's on there on my YouTube channel. So joincfe.com/YouTube is where it's at. Okay, so let's scroll back up. Wow, a lot of questions already. Awesome. Unity Me, yeah, it happens now. I know. Not sure what you mean by that. Maybe it's the audio again. I'm just gonna assume these funny things are my fault on audio. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Tech House, hi dear. Can you create videos on Django with AI? Make some project. Love you, dude. Love you too. Thanks for the comment and question. Yeah, I intend to do that. I intend to have something with Django that works with AI because it's the future, right? You absolutely have to do something like that. But most likely, you're not actually going to be using Django to do the AI. You're going to be using some other thing, and then Django will access that other thing. So just keep that in mind. You're not going to run the training, if you will. If you're familiar with what I'm talking about, you're probably not going to do that in the Django process. You'll probably do it in a separate process, maybe as its own microservice, maybe something different. You most likely won't be doing it in the Django process, but there's still research that needs to be done here. So maybe eventually you will be able to, but as of now, as far as I know, you probably won't do that. You'd probably offload it to a different process or a different server altogether. Much like if you were transcoding video. So if you uploaded a video to your Django project and you wanted to transcode it into, let's say, a different format or a different size, you most likely would not do that inside of Django. You would actually do it outside of Django. And I think using AI stuff will be very, very similar. So hopefully that helps answer your question there. Unity asks, can I help you which framework you should choose, Angular or React? They're both really good, so you just pick one and go for it. If you like what I teach, I have Angular tutorials already. If you are interested in React, I mean, it's like saying which one do you want it made by, Google or Facebook? I mean, some of them are going to, like Angular's made by Google, React's made by Facebook. So in some cases, I mean, it's almost the same question as TensorFlow versus PyTorch. So it's kind of, you're going to pick one and go for it and just stick with it until you master it. And then you might move to the other one if your projects demand it. Yeah. So, cool. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Mohit asks, async IO is very difficult to wrap your head around. Is it just me or is it normal? Yes, it is not just you. It is normal because you're used to these chains of things happening. So one after another, and not really like bouncing around and waiting for one thing to complete and another thing to complete. Something that you might consider checking out for async IO is we have a blog post on it. So joincfe.com/blog. There is something for web scraping with async IO, which I do intend to have on our YouTube channel too. I'm still doing more research on making that as effective as possible for you guys, because from my tests, we get it's confusing. Like it just is. It's a confusing topic on how it works. But I think once you work through it enough times, it will start to become less confusing. As far as like how it works, there are probably other YouTube channels that actually do cover it. So you can, if you wanted to jump in right now, you could probably jump in and play around with it a lot more there. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Hopefully that helps answer your question. But really all it's going to be is look for tutorials, try and find some of the basic things, and add timestamps to it. So with whatever function you're doing, add a timestamp and maybe a description, print those things out. Because of how everything's executed, it's not executed in the same way you might be familiar with. So seeing those timestamps with a description of what's going on should help you better understand how the code's being executed, and therefore better understand the order of it. My hair keeps dropping. Okay. Cool. So next one, Learn Tech Bro, which hosting is cheap and best to host Django. Heroku has a free tier, so Heroku's one. I've heard a lot of good things about Python Anywhere. There's a lot of them. DigitalOcean is not that expensive, but you really have to know what you're doing with DevOps there. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. W4 Script, I want to learn Django. Please tell me where I can start now. On our YouTube channel, look for any of the Try Django series. Try Django 1.11 is my most recent Try Django series that's released. That one's really good. So stick with that version of Django too. That will help you learn. And then do another Try Django, and then another one, and eventually you'll start to really, really understand it. Cool. Indrajit, thank you. Gurmit Singh, hey bro, come up with a tutorial regarding signals in Django. Yeah, so I actually have quite a few of these tutorials using signals. So just go to my website, joincfe.com, and do a quick search for signals, and you should find quite a few things in there. I think some of them are for members only, some of them are completely free. So just check that out. Because on my website, everything's broken apart. Like every video, every topic, and every video is broken apart. Where on YouTube, I'm doing them all together as one video. Or I haven't completely done that, but I do that for those more comprehensive ones. Try Django 1.11 might even have that, so check out the description on YouTube if you want to stay there for the signals for that. Hopefully that answers your question. They're pretty straightforward, and I use them a lot, so I definitely cover them quite often, even if maybe the title of something is not related to the signal itself. Okay, cool. So Crescent says, I'm using Django and need some real-time data update. Any recommendations on what to use? Django Channels is a good example of doing that. Yeah, so Django Channels can help you with real-time updating. And I think Firebase is a service from Google that you can probably use with this too. Maybe even Celery, you could probably help with the real-time data stuff. So Python Celery, I think that will also be something, maybe. Joshua asks, do I want to see Infinity War? Do I want to see the movie Avengers Infinity War? Yeah, absolutely. I think it looks awesome. I mean, how do you not want to see that? It looks like a really exciting movie, and it's the culmination of like 10 years of Marvel, something like that. So even if it's not great, it's still going to be a fun, entertaining movie, I'm sure. It's probably not going to be like the Justice League, thankfully, because DC doesn't know what they're doing now, right? They simply don't. What's going on over there? Okay, so next one, please make a video of Django version 2 with PostgreSQL. So I talk about this sometimes, but switching the database is actually really, really easy to do. So I think you mean just using a Postgres database, not actually setting up and building everything in Postgres. If you mean that, please let me know. Yeah, cool. So Django 2.0, Try Django 2.0 is coming. I promise you, it is coming. I'm working on it. Okay, Tech House. On YouTube, there are very less quality videos on Django projects. Are you referring to my quality versus their quality? If you are, thank you so much. I work hard to do this. I've been doing it for a little over 5 years now, teaching others how to code with Django. It's awesome. This is part of the reason I've been doing live Q&As again, is to interact with you guys and connect and hear your thoughts and also get better myself, because there's some things that you're trying to learn that, maybe I just don't know about yet. And I've had some really, really good questions that really challenge what I know, which is great. Like that's what it's all about, is getting better every day. Cool. Satya asks, hey Justin, it was hard learning from documentation for me. Do you have everything covered in your tutorials, either video or in your website? It looks like I skipped one. So you actually want to, I'm assuming you want to learn Django. If that's the case, we have a ton of stuff on joincfe.com/projects, as well as joincfe.com/courses. So we have a ton of things there. If you really, really want to go from zero and build a very comprehensive project and learn everything along the way, our e-commerce course on joincfe.com/courses is that course. That's where I mean, I made that from zero to go all the way, and it's the most comprehensive thing I've ever done. Now, if you're not ready to jump into that, you can check out on YouTube, try Django 1.11. That one's really, really cool. So to get to our YouTube channel, it's joincfe.com/YouTube. Zumo TV says you don't want to see a live topic. Cool, thank you. Thanks for the feedback there. Next one, Tech House. Can you start the Series 12 app in a 12-week? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I don't know what you're referencing either. So please give me some more context to what you wanted me to do. So I'm guessing maybe make 12 apps in 12 weeks, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Learn Tech Bro just reference to you of Django version 2.0. So a big thing is that you guys, I need to say this over and over, I think, because it's one of the most common things I get is like, can you update version whatever for Django? The versions actually aren't that much different. And I have a few different, I think I have 3 videos now showing you how to upgrade old projects to a newer version of Django. And you'll see they're like 25 minutes long. And the only reason they're that long is because I'm typing everything, I'm explaining a lot. But really, it would take 5 minutes to update those if you know what you're doing. Which means that the version changes aren't significant enough to constantly have the newest version out. You might not agree with me, but I promise you it's really not significant enough, especially if you're learning. If you're advanced, you wouldn't be asking me this question anyway because you know that. Yeah, so I think it's a common thing for a lot of Django authors and teachers. They hear this a lot. I know that because I've heard them say it. Cool. Whoa. Lots of questions. Thanks, everybody. Let's see. When I scroll down, it goes all the way to the bottom. Okay. Next one. Indrajit. I think that's how I pronounce her name. What should I've learned other than Java to make Android apps? I don't make Android apps, so I don't have a whole lot to give you there. You might consider learning JavaScript in a front-end framework and maybe a back-end like Django, so you can have your data actually work with that Java. But I think there might even be back-end frameworks for Java, but again, I don't really work in Java or Android, so I don't have a whole lot there. I know that if you learned Ionic, which is a front-end framework, you could probably replace Java to make Android apps. Actually, I know you can. That's definitely something you can. So if I ever need to make an Android app, it's using Ionic and not using Java. That's what I meant by I don't make Java Android apps. Cool. Next one. Tech House. I'm not sure what you're saying there. If you have a question, just if you could keep it into one thing and not multiple comments, that makes a big difference in me being able to address them. Because if you chain them together, like if they're a comment from 10 questions ago, it's going to be hard for me to respond. And I'm looking at you, Tech House. I think you've been separating some of these things out a little bit. I do appreciate the interaction though, but let's keep them together so I can actually answer them for you. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start skipping them to get to everyone else's questions. Hello from Belarus. Hey, thanks, Dennis. Welcome. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Let's see. Next one. Chahudali Miguel. Hey, what's up? Welcome back. Good to see you again. And thanks I'm glad you're enjoying the OpenCV series. Have I considered one tutorial where we create a Django project with an existing database and where we can also use raw queries? So like making a new Django project on an old and existing database. I think that migration is going to be really, really challenging. I actually am not positive because I've never had to do this myself. So what I do instead is I export that data in a format that Django understands in the form of Django fixtures, and then I load them into Django using Django fixtures to make sure that everything in the Django project's working correctly. I don't know if that's the most efficient way to move from one project to another. I haven't had to do this a lot, so I haven't had to take a PHP project with a MySQL database and convert that into a Django project a whole lot. It's just not something that I personally have to deal with. So actually doing that would be I think, a relatively challenging process. So another thing that I would consider doing myself, if that was the case, is I would find a PHP developer that works with the API, or that can build an API in PHP, a REST API, and then start getting the data from that REST API that way. That would be another thing. Again, maybe not the most efficient, but then what that would allow me to do is transition that Django project in the way that I would need it transitioned. Yeah. So migrating from one backend to another is not a small task. I know that much, because you have to think about the database and how the database is set up. And then you also have to think about how your new project is going to work with that database. So that's an interesting one. I would imagine somebody out there has done that. So this might even be a question for Stack Overflow. Like, what are the best ways to migrate from like a PHP project with a MySQL database to a Django project with a MySQL database? Really, really interested in seeing what that answer might be. Sashi says, hashtag Justin, also make some REST tutorials, please. I have some. So joincfe.com/YouTube. You can check out, there's several REST tutorials on there, actually. So the blog API project's a little bit older one, but it still works. And then a build a REST API, I think that's what it's called. That's a video also on YouTube that's newer. It's just more rapid. And then also on joincfe.com/courses, there's a bunch there too. So check that out. Okay, so question is, should the virtual env be outside my Django project or Django inside the virtual env folder? So there's definitely two methodologies of where to store your virtual environment. One is to store all of the virtual environments in one place and then have a command that activates them, and you don't really put anything in those virtual environments, right? You might install stuff for those virtual environments, but you don't actually put code in them. That's one methodology. That's not the methodology I use. I use the methodology of putting my virtual environment and then my project inside of that virtual environment. The reason I do this is I think it's a lot more flexible with using virtual environments than having to, remember which virtual environment I'm using for the requirements for this project. Right, so here, let me say it another way. If you have 50 projects and you want 50 virtual environments for each one, which I recommend, because each project might have different requirements, even if they're slightly different, they might be different. Are you going to want to remember the name of the virtual environment for all 50 projects as well as the name of the Django project? Or are you just going to want to remember the name of the Django project or the name of your project in general and just CD into that, activate the virtual environment, and then go into the code? I think the latter is so much easier, just putting your virtual environment and Django project together for the reasons I just said. Thank you for the question, Simone. I think it's Simone. I think you told me that before. I believe it's the same Simone, and thanks for coming. I love how some of you come to almost every single one, if not every single one. Let me know in the chat if you have been to everyone, saying I've been to every single one. I'd be surprised, but because I do them at various times of the day, and we're all located at various places around the world, right? So, yeah, like I'm in Newport Beach, California. Hello. This is one of the things I love about software, right? Is like we can interact with people, customers, users, tribe. We can interact with them all around the world, and it's all through software. So it actually doesn't matter where I am doing this right now. Like I could be doing this in South America. I could be doing this in Europe. I could be doing this in Africa and Asia and Australia. I could be anywhere there at this exact same time, and it will feel very similar, especially if I have a white wall behind me, right? Like it's not going to be a whole lot different. The only difference is that I probably won't be playing with my hair as much. Just kidding. All right, so the next one. Adidas says, hey, Justin, great content, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You've been working as a Django developer for a couple of years. Just wanted to know that from your experience, what's the current future usage and salary of Django? So I think you're assuming that since I've been working as a Django developer for a few years. So the salary obviously is going to change depending on what demands are for Python and more specifically for web applications in Python. I think Django is still a leader, and it's going to continue to be that way for a while. But I mean, it's still a very, very valuable skill. And the point, though, of being a developer in general, not just a Django developer, is to continuously hone your skills, to be an endless coder. Like, you always want to get better at whatever it is. So, of course, you need to monitor trends as to what's coming. One of those things is artificial intelligence and deep learning. So if you are a web developer in Django and you know how to do deep learning, or you know how to do stuff like OpenCV, or you know how to do web scraping like data analysis, or you know how to do this, and this, and marketing and growth hacking and all these other things, every single one of those things will make you a better developer because of perspective. It doesn't mean that you're going to be better at those things, like you'll be better than the next person or the person who's dedicated to that. But learning multiple things will help you become what's called a linchpin. There's a book by Seth Godin all about it if you're interested more. But basically become a critical role in that organization because you can think about all of these things in context to your role, to your job as a developer. Now, of course, being the best that you can possibly be as a Django developer or a software developer in general is absolutely critical to making sure that you have a great salary and you'll be able to stay for a long time. And then also being known for the person in that organization as the one who knows the latest technology, whatever it is, that is something that you will always help you. And also help you get other jobs, right? So if you are a very solid web developer and you're like, okay, well, I know that I need to learn more about business. Then you learn as much as you possibly can about business, as well as improving your communication skills. Then you can go into something that handles both sides. Like maybe it's a project lead where you're running these Django teams or any web development teams or any software development teams, because you can now speak the language to both types of people, right? So I think a lot of developers and a lot of very good developers get really, really honed in on just becoming a really good developer, and then that's all they ever do, which I do recommend if you want to do it as a job. But then you also want to think about other skills that will help you solidify your position. So how does this relate to the current usage of Django and salary? Well, I think that if you stick with the latest things and you're improving your skills, what you'll start to see is your skills in Django will also improve because you'll have a new perspective. You'll be able to see things in a different way. So the projects that you build will have a better and more robust experience, most likely, because you'll have to think of it in terms of somebody else and you'll become more empathetic so you can build your software to be more empathetic or at least have a better experience for that person. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Learn Tech Bro says, is it great to, in the future, to be a Django developer? Yeah, I think so. I think Django developers will be around for a while because Python is getting so popular and the Django core team continues to improve. And then there's a lot of new teachers, new developers. There's a lot of people that are working on Django. So it's a really, really cool open source project, and I think it's going to be around for a while. So Umar says, I guess we should make a socket server using Tornado and then integrate it with a socket server with Django for a real-time application. That is likely that is something you probably can do, but I believe that Django Channels takes over what Tornado does. I think then it's like more tightly integrated with Django, so then you don't have to necessarily use something like Tornado. I believe that's the case, and I'm pretty sure on their documentation they write about Tornado versus Django Channels in general. Thanks for the question. Slim says, hello guys. Hello Slim, welcome. Tim, how can I work on several projects at the same time? I'm not sure what you're asking me. Like, how do you manage it? Well, just be very, very organized with how you run your projects. And then also using something like Git. So version control will save you if you accidentally start working on one project and you mean to be on another one. Version control will allow you to go back. That's the point. That's awesome for version control. And then Tim says, how do you practice coding routines? What type of routines are you talking about? Yeah, let me know. W4 Script, which CSS and JavaScript framework do I prefer? So CSS, like a library, so a design framework. It's no longer called a framework anymore, but as a design library is Bootstrap, so that's a front-end design library. It used to be called a framework. It's not a framework anymore because it's not considered a framework in terms of a front-end framework. Front-end frameworks are like Angular and React, so I use Angular a lot, and that is a JavaScript framework that I personally prefer at this time. Cool. Zumo TV, your Udemy e-commerce course, is a function-based course. How can I find a class-based equivalent? Well, if you are referring to Python e-commerce, it might start with function bases, but it eventually goes to class-based. I pretty much start with function-based all the time and then eventually work into class-based views because I want to give the beginners context for how those actually work. But yeah, class-based views I use all the time. So stick with whatever course you're on. And if it's not Python e-commerce, check out that course or check out joincfv.com/courses, the e-commerce course there. Those two will, well, it's the same course, but on our website, we have more content from it. Cool. Next one, Django is the best framework among all and will continue to dominate always because of its robust nature. I don't know. I mean, it's very, very good right now. And I have this like notion of best versus better, which is dropping tomorrow. So check out our YouTube channel tomorrow. But basically the idea that best is like done, right? Like it doesn't need to be any better. So yeah, I think Django is a better framework than most Python frameworks right now, but there's still a lot of room to improve, and there's a lot of room for all these other ones to improve. And once we apply AI to actually writing the frameworks, we might see some things that will just overtake everything that we've ever thought. It's going to be really interesting when that happens, and it will. Mark my words, it will definitely happen where we have an AI that creates our own web frameworks, and it's going to be way better than anything that we would have ever imagined. Okay, cool. Next one. Thanks for the question, Aditya. When it comes to advanced topics, I get stuck at model view MVT concepts as it requires changes in multiple files at the same time. It'd be nice if you could cover advanced topics at a slower pace. Thank you for the feedback. So model view template, so the MVT is what Django uses, not MVC, as you might be familiar with. So let me just kind of clarify what's going on here. So model actually stores the data, and it gives us a sort of a framework on how we can store the data. Views render the data. They allow us to take what that data is, whether it's from models or not, and then it renders it. It actually will also handle the URL paths or the URL routing. And then finally, templates. The template is the front-end renderer that takes in whatever you pass from your view, and it starts to make sense of it. The documentation is actually really good for this. So definitely take a look at the documentation for the MVT on Django's project. As far as the speed as to which I speak and explain things, yeah, so I hear this a lot, and the only one thing is, if I slow down, then that means less content gets produced. If I keep at the same route, less content gets produced for a couple reasons. One is because I'm just not producing as fast. Two is that slowing down and making my training style different is a lot harder for me to actually accomplish it. So that means that I'm going to make more errors. That means that I'm just not going to be able to produce at the same level that I do now. The other side is interest in general. So if I'm going super slow, which I realize would help a lot of you, but I'll get to that in just a second. If I'm going super slow, then I might lose a lot of interest in this, and it makes it a lot harder to actually build that content because I want to build it for you. So the interest part of things and the speed, I do recommend that you lower the speed on the video. So YouTube has that ability to lower the speed. And then if you aren't clear on something, pause that video and write out 7, 10, 20 questions that you have for that video and come to our next live event. And you can keep going after that. But if you write that many questions, the questions are what's important. You should be getting these questions. And if my speed is a problem, then writing these questions out will help you better understand what I'm trying to get across from you, and hopefully will help you write better questions too, even if you're not necessarily coding with me at the same time. I really, really believe in that. So if you have to watch the video 3 or 4 times, that's okay. It might not seem like it's that efficient, but the point that will be is the questions that come up in your mind, because the more you watch it, the more questions you'll have, and the better understanding you'll start to cultivate because of that. Hopefully that answers your question. Sorry that it's not slower, but I think it ends up being more beneficial that I produce more content than less, because it ends up helping more people in more time. But if you do those things that I recommend, then perhaps the speed won't be as much of a problem in the future. Because you also got to think about this, is like, if you become advanced and you want to learn some other new techniques that I have, are you really going to want to watch a video that's super slow? My answer to that is no, you probably won't. You'll probably want the faster video, because then you'll get it faster. And that's where I'm at. That's what I build it for. Is I have a lot of students that are on the more advanced side. So how do you solve the problem for both of them? It's challenging, and that's why the speed is at the speed that's comfortable for me. That's why it's not too fast for me. It's not too slow for me. It's right in that sweet spot, just like what I'm talking now. For those of you who watch a lot of my tutorials, you know that how I'm talking right now is almost identical to how I do in the videos, except the videos are slower because I actually have to type. So, yeah. Thanks for the feedback. Appreciate it. Eduardo asks, have I ever used Tornado? Yes, I have. It's pretty cool. I like it. And I also like that the Jupyter, I think it's called Jupyter Hub, uses Tornado as well to be able to run Jupyter in the browser, Jupyter Notebooks in the browser. It's pretty cool. So yeah, Tornado has some really good advantages for sure. I just don't use it a lot, so I don't have a huge comment on it versus Django Channels or something like that. Cool. Mahinder says you're having a hard time using mixins with class-based views. What's your question there? What is it that's challenging? Let me know. Simone asks, how do I add analytics of models without hit my database by saving every time I want to new save or other analytic info? If you don't want it to hit your database, you can use something like Google Analytics or other third-party analytic tools to do that. If you want to save it to your database, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to figure out a way that allows you to do a bunch of analytics on your page and then send it when they navigate out. So using JavaScript to actually do the analytics for you, much like Google Analytics does. Cool. So I've got a few messages retracted, so I'm going to skip those. How to know more about channels in practice. How to know more about Django channels in practice. Check out the tutorial. It's pretty cool. And then read the documentation. That's all I've got for you. Sorry that I don't have more answers there. Adita, hey Justin, great follow of your content and courses. Thank you. I appreciate that. You want to see projects with Django 2.0. I mentioned this earlier, so rewind it back if you'd like. Slim Ya says how to use Django or the easiest way to use Django for e-commerce. It really depends on what your goals are. Do you want a lot of flexibility? If you want a lot of flexibility, build it from scratch, like I do on the e-commerce course. If you don't care about flexibility, I'm sure there's a third-party package out there that's really good. I think Django Oscar is one of them. I haven't really used it. I like the flexibility. I use Django for flexibility. I don't use it to be locked into something. So that's why I built e-commerce from scratch. And really, if you're just looking to get an e-commerce site out there as fast as possible, like, you don't even need to use Django. Use something like Shopify. Use their service because they've already thought through everything that you need to think through. Get your e-commerce going, and once it starts going, you're like, hey, I need this, this, and this done, and Shopify doesn't do it. So that's when you start building your Django project. You know, you want to do both things. You want it to be fast, but you also want to be deliberate and have flexibility. Yeah. Cool. Same question from Mahinder. Mahinder, I will get to questions eventually. Sometimes I don't get to all of them in the stream, but I mean, that's, yeah. that's just what happens. I mean, eventually I might, but maybe not. Okay, so I'm going to do like maybe 10 more minutes of this. So if you guys have questions, get them in now, and I'll try to get to all of them. Yeah. Okay, so cool D, sir. Which Python OAuth package do you use for coding for entrepreneurs? So we use, it's called, it used to be called Python Social Auth, and now I think it's called Social Auth. I'm going blank on it. I would recommend for beginners to use Django AllAuth at this point. This is one of those things I just mentioned about flexibility. So Social AllAuth, I already have so many things that rely on that that it's really, really hard for me to move away from it, to migrate away from it, in the sense that it's going to take a lot of time that I don't want to spend. That's why I haven't moved over to something like Django AllAuth. But if I was starting a project now, I would either use Django AllAuth or I would do it from scratch. One or the other. Cool. Next one, you also want high quality projects. I'm assuming you mean high quality projects with Django 2.0. I work hard to make sure that all of the projects I do are high quality. So if they're not, then let me know. Joffrey says, I suggest we vote on a potential subject matter. You talk about it, and then we do it in a Q&A. This is perfect timing for us in Africa. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Joffrey. And no worries about saying hi. It's good to hear from you again. So you do like this idea of me doing a topic and then having some Q&A after that topic, and then maybe we need to have some sort of way of actually gathering that data of like what topics I should actually do. That's pretty interesting. Probably have to think on that a little bit more and maybe start taking some action on it too. Can you please provide a e-commerce Django version 2.0 tutorial? I already have an e-commerce Django tutorial, and you hopefully now know my thoughts on the different versions. If you don't, let me know. I got a Spanish question from Shiluta Miguel. Sorry, I pronounce your name incorrectly every single time, and all of you, I'm sorry that I do that. I see that you're giving me... I have... my Spanish is not great, so what video would you do for work in CFE? Sorry, I don't know that question. I don't know Spanish well enough to answer it. Eduardo asks, one day can you make MuiPicky app on Tornado? Oh, so make that restaurant app that I did in TryDjango 1.11 on a Tornado app. That's interesting. Perhaps, maybe. I'm probably more likely to do Django channels than Tornado. Or I'm definitely more likely to do that now because I will do Django channels. It just hasn't happened yet. Okay. Sammy says, any plans on integrating OpenCV into a Django web app? Lost some stuff here. Scroll down and it goes away. Shoot, I don't know where that question went. Oh, there it is. Okay, so OpenCV and Django, I think eventually maybe I'll do something there, but OpenCV you would use for processing of some kind, or FFmpeg. You might not necessarily use OpenCV with Django. I'm still doing some more research on it, but essentially you don't, like, I don't think you would use OpenCV to open a webcam on a web application. You would use something different, and then you would send that video or that feed to a backend that would need to process it somehow. These sorts of things I haven't done a whole lot of, so I don't have an answer there. So integrating OpenCV with Django, maybe just for processing, not for real-time video like what I have been doing in those tutorials. Joffrey, what do you think about deploying Django apps with Docker, and what's the advantage over old school virtual env? So deploying Django apps with Docker is a great idea. It's just a lot more challenging to set up than virtual env. The advantage is it's self-contained. It's in what's called a container. So since it's self-contained, that means it can't access the rest of your file system outside of the Django doc. Outside of the Docker itself, the Docker container itself. It won't. Which is great for, so if you wanted your users to use a command line on your live project, you could use Docker to do that, and it will be safe, versus allowing them into your own command line where, there might be some issues there. So the big advantage is having that self-contained object. The other one is literally passing around that Docker container. So you can pass it to one machine to another and it will work out of the box. It'll just work right then and there. So that's a huge advantage. Where virtual ENVs, you might have to reinstall things. You might have to update the different system and all that. So like if you're using it on one system and you bring that virtual environment to another, it might work, it might not. But I know that my Mac virtual environment won't work on my Windows computer, where I believe, I don't have enough experience with this, but I believe that your Django, a Docker project or a Docker container with your Django app in it, if you move it from a Mac, Windows, or Linux, or all around, it will work the same every single time. Pretty cool. Juan says, hey, you don't use a debug tool, breaks, jump to next, watch values, etc. to develop Django and Sublime Text. I do, but the purpose of the videos, I don't want it to go too fast. I mean, I just got questions about that it's going too fast, and I think using debug tools or autocomplete tools in Sublime Text is great if you're a little bit more advanced, but for the rest of us that are learning, or for those of us that are learning, it makes things a lot more confusing, in my opinion. And in my experience, actually. So I was using an IDE for a few videos way back in the day that did autocomplete, and I just had so many questions like, wait, why did it go so fast? How'd you know to do that? Blah, blah, blah. So I just sort of avoid doing those things and do a lot more things by manually too. So, next one, the Django Angular course on CFE has finished the Django and Angular parts. When is the Ionic part coming out? Angular 6 is coming out soon, so that means that Ionic will have to go through some changes. As far as what I know, Ionic is undergoing some of those changes soon, and once those changes are complete, then we'll go back to Ionic. But hopefully, if you've done the Angular part, you already have a really, really good idea of how to do Angular, and then actually using the Ionic documentation shouldn't actually be that complicated in conjunction with Angular. So thanks for the feedback there. So hopefully soon. It's just we have a few other things that we are definitely going to do in the meantime, or that I'm definitely going to do in the meantime, as these changes that might be happening to Ionic that I read about. Cool. And I honestly don't remember where I read it, but I remember seeing that Ionic's going to make some shifts. Maybe it's on their blog. It might be on their blog on that they're making some fairly major changes to Ionic pretty soon. And if that's not the case, if I find out that that's not the case, I'll get right back on it and make sure that we can build that Ionic project, because it's very useful. Next one, I need to start Angular. Where do I have to start? Check out our Try Angular version 4 series, and that most likely we'll use with Angular version 5. That should be fine. They'll give you some warnings about little changes here and there, but overall I think it's roughly the same. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so maybe like 5 more minutes, guys, and then we're going to call it a day. I have a lot to do today, so I don't have as much time as I'd like to chat with you here on this live one. So I'm just going to answer a few more questions. Sorry, I see that there's quite a few left. Please leave them on the comments on the video once it posts, which is in about 20 minutes. Probably a lot of you don't end up doing that, but it really does help, because I will attend to them in the next one at the very beginning. Cool. So let's see. Satya says you're looking for a Python Django developer job right now, and there are plenty of things that people work on. So I want to learn web development now. What are all the things you need to do? Or what are all the things that a Django developer needs to know? I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot more than I can go through here. But basically, go to joincfe.com/GitHub, our GitHub repository, and look at the e-commerce course, or the e-commerce repo. And that's just e-commerce, not 2, not 1, not any of that. Just e-commerce. And look at all the code there. If you know how to do that, then you have a pretty solid case for being a Django developer yourself. There are things that you would probably need to do beyond that. But that's a very, very comprehensive project. So if you can look through that code and go, yep, know how to do that. Yep, know how to do that. And then look away from it and actually be able to build it. Those are the things you should know. So that, of course, has a lot of topics in it. But yeah, that's probably not the greatest question to your answer, or greatest answer to your question. But again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this right now. So if you want to know more about that, please let me know in the comments of the video after it posts. Again, after it posts, not on the chat. Not on the chat. Okay. Learn Tech Bro, what is a REST API and why is it necessary for a Django or web app? What a REST API does is it allows your project to communicate with another project using software in a uniform way. Much like if you build a view in Django, it works, right? Well, how do you grab information from, let's say, like YouTube that you need? How do you do that? A REST API is what does that. So that's why it's necessary if you want to extend your project beyond its local project. Do you know how to integrate Memcached with Django? It's actually really simple to do. You just put in some configuration, and then there's a third-party Django package. I think it's called Django Memcached that you can just implement, and then boom, done. It takes only a few minutes. Sashi, I'm glad I answered your question. Thanks for asking it. Asir asked how to stop procrastination. Watch my very first podcast on YouTube. So joincfe.com/YouTube. Look for the podcast called On a Scale of 1 to 10. That will better answer the question than what I can do right now. Eduardo, what is your technique to program very well? To break things, to move as fast as possible, break it, and then start thinking about how can I make this more efficient. And some of that comes with time and practice, and also trying to explain to other people. That really, really helps me learn. So if you want to get better at your technique, teach somebody else how to code. Teach your friend that's considering learning. And you guys, I mean, you can honestly have them watch my videos, which I would love, but you can have them watch some videos on YouTube, and then you can try and explain the concepts more and answer questions much like I am right now, but with somebody that's learning. Okay. Indrahit, is that right? Sorry for pronouncing your question wrong, and happy birthday. Happy early birthday. That's awesome that you're watching this almost to your birthday. That's cool. But maybe soon going and hanging out with friends, or maybe it's late there, you need to take a nap, and then you wake up and yeah, happy birthday. That's cool. Thanks for being here. Rabish asks, how do I use Python for machine learning? You can do it with several different, scikit-learn is one of them. That's a really good way to start with basic machine learning stuff. That will also use NumPy and Pandas. Those are a lot of the things that you might start with before you go with something more advanced like deep learning, like TensorFlow, Keras, or PyTorch. Cool. We got a question that I had to review. I follow your course, Django for Beginners e-commerce site. How do you use Django 1.11, but you want to build a chatting app that uses Django 2.0.3. Again, rewind about the versions. The versions aren't important when you're learning, period. They're not. They're just simply not. Just stick with the version that is in this series, whatever it is, whether it's my content or somebody else's. As it relies to Django, the versions are not that important. How do you add the chatting app? You're going to want to use something like Django Channels to do that. Cool. All right, so let's see. Maybe like 5 more questions. Thanks for coming out, guys. I really appreciate it. So next question is, from where can I get freelance work for Django? Upwork.com. Upwork.com is really, really good. I think Freelancer is another one. That's a good place to start getting freelance work. And what I would say is make yourself as inexpensive as possible. Like, what is the absolute bare minimum you would get to be paid to do Django work? Honestly, what is the bare minimum? So you can start to build your portfolio, and then as you build your portfolio and demand, then you can start raising your prices. You can make jumps if you'd like. Some of your old customers might not be happy about it, but you got to make a living, and if demand is there, demand's there. That's that. Next question, what is Django Channels? Django Channels is a official Django project to add support for WebSockets and real-time processing using Django. So it turns Django into a real-time application using real-time Python as well. So similar concepts as Async.io. I believe it actually uses Async.io. Omar asked, can I do a Django and React series? I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon, but I do have one on how to integrate a React or any JavaScript front end with Django. That is a video I have on my YouTube channel, so check that out. I wish you made a course for ERP development by Django. Yeah, so ERP I haven't done a whole lot of myself. So what specifically are you looking for? Thanks for the question, Saif. Okay, so that's been, 4 or 5 questions already. I'll answer 2 more. Can you please give me more details about creation of access and error logs files in Nginx? I'm not sure what you're asking there, so I don't know what other details I can give you. Next one is, how can I send session ID from browser to Django REST framework? Backend session ID is not extracting from cookies. I'm using AngularJS and Django REST framework. Please solve my problem. So you want to use this session. You don't have to use. I think you. Well, let's see. You have to have. I actually don't remember the answer to this question. I know I've addressed this before, but I don't remember the answer. Look on Stack Overflow. There's something there. And if you're saying AngularJS, meaning Angular version 1.5, I highly don't recommend that you should do that. You should use the latest version of Angular, because AngularJS or Angular version 1.5 or 1.6 is probably not something that you need. Okay, cool. Last question from Draft Drifter. More of a beginner question. Thanks for the question, Draft Drifter. I am having problems finding a way to improve my Python skills. I feel like through all the Django courses I'm learning, but not really much of Python programming. So my suggestion for this is to pick a project you really, really want to build, and that will help you learn your Python skills better, right? So if you want to automate something with just Python and not building web applications, pick what that is and then build that thing using Python as much as possible, and then do a new project. You'll have a ton of questions that you'll need to get answered. Then you start answering those questions, and then over time your questions will become better, and therefore your skills will become better in Python. Okay, guys, so that's it for this one. I realize there's a bunch of more questions that I didn't have time to get to. Just have a lot to cover today. Went for about an hour. So thanks so much for you guys coming out. I do intend to do more live Q&As. So thank you so much.